Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got the tank review for the brand new independent Era 2 tank destroyer, the Rock Crawler. Now this is another mercenary tank. It is, I believe, a Type 89 turret on the AE Phase 1 hull with the 183mm cannon from the 4005 in Era 2. On the whole, I think this tank is it's pretty nice to have a tank with a different playstyle in Era 2. It's got obviously that high alpha gameplay. It's a bit more standoffish as a TD. You want to kind of be a little bit further back. You don't want to be brawling with this thing because honestly the armor's not that good. It can brawl because it's got the alpha. If you're in a pack and you've got enough people supporting you, you will be okay because you can use those. It's second line, right? It's a support tank. That's the whole point of a tank destroyer like this. It's a support tank. If you've got people with you that can be there to bounce, take hits, and you can keep slapping the shots out, you can have a good time with this tank. It has that 183mm gun, which means, like I say, it has that high alpha, but that means this gun is actually exceptionally derpy, especially over range. This gun misses a lot of shots, and even up close, it likes to go, I'm just going to drop low and hit the tracks. But when it hits like a truck, and it is, like I say, it's nice to have that in Era 2, just to have that little extra sort of different gameplay, because a lot of the tanks in Era 2 are tanks that have like 500 alpha, fire really quickly and move really quickly. This thing's got pretty good mobility, it's got no armor, it hits like a truck, but its reload's quite slow, which, it's nice to have something different in Era 2. I think it's a pretty damn good tank. Is it worth it? Well, I'll leave that one down to you guys, because it is, 12,900 gold? That's a lot of money. I would always say wait for discounts, always wait for discounts, because you get 30% off this, you get what, like 9,000, 10,000 gold, something like that? Even more than if they decide to do a bigger discount than that. Who knows? You might get more gold off of it, you might get it in a chest one day, they might put it as a contractor or an earn-up tank, who knows? I will always say wait for discounts. But yeah, it's nice to have a tank that's just a little bit different in Era 2. And it's not crazy, to be fair, which is always good. So, let's have a look at the statistics of the Rock Crawler. So the Rock Crawler has 1,100 horsepower with a 56 km/h top speed, 23 km/h reverse speed with a 19.72 horsepower per ton ratio, 20% fire chance, which is on the high end for the fire chances, so this thing can get set on fire pretty nastily by things that pen you, especially the ones that have higher alpha and higher module damage. You've got that nice power to weight, which means you do hit 56 km/h pretty easily. It is pretty mobile tank destroyer. That's the one thing that's nice about it. It's not slow, it is pretty mobile. And the reverse speed at 23 km/h as well is also very, very nice. You've got 2.6k hit points, which is a nice slab of hit points to use. You can obviously trade something for 500, slap them for then the big alpha of 1,150 or 1,400, etc, etc. So that's quite nice. You got 28 degrees a second on the hull rotation, which is not the fastest in the universe in the turning of the tracks, but it's also not that slow either. You might want to make that better with clutch braking or the traction system, anything like that. You could make that better if you wanted to. 2.3 on soft, 1.2 on medium, and 1.1 on firm. Pretty average ground resistances. You could make that better with off-road driving to help you with that top speed if you want to, but that's completely down to you. You've got 341 metres of steel concealment with 397 on the moving. You can actually get this camo down really, really low if you run a full camo build. There's two builds that you could probably run on this tank, and we'll go through that in a bit. But you can actually get this camo down to about 155 if you run it with the camo and the camo net and the smoke as well. You can get this camo down really, really well, really easily, which is quite nice because that means that it'll be difficulty for people to actually they'll physically see you, but to actually spot you with the spotting system, they probably won't, and that gives you the time to aim and shoot at them because a lot of people don't react to be able to see you. They just go, oh, a tank's spotted, and then shoot you. So, yeah, there is that. You got 510 metres of view range, which is pretty damn nice in Era 2. A lot of tanks have got like that 480 odd, so 510's pretty decent. You got 34 degrees a second on the turret rotation, which means the turret rotation is faster than the tracks, which is nice. Means that you don't, if you turn left and you're turning the turret right, it won't correct it too badly. You've got 2.45 accuracy during rotation, which is atrocious. Because you are a big gun, it's going to be atrocious. 2.45 meters of accuracy during rotation is awful. You want to try and help this gun as much as possible with the crew skills and the equipment setup. You've got 8 degrees of elevation, which really isn't very good. 8 degrees of elevation is really, really not very nice. And you can have a lot of situations where you're trying to look up with the gun and you're on a slight incline. And when you try and look up, it just doesn't. And 8 degrees is really, really, really low. So yeah, if you're on a hill, you're going to struggle with this elevation a little bit. 10 degrees of gun depression, on the other hand, is fantastic. And you're not the tallest of tanks either, so 10 degrees of gun depression is fantastic for those ridge lines. Absolutely fantastic. You're going to be able to use this thing on a ridge line really easily, and it's probably kind of where you want to be, so that you're limiting the amount of your tank that people can shoot, because the armour isn't very good, and then you can slap out the big rounds. You do have a 90 degrees of yaw limit, so turret rotation, essentially. So the turret will only turn to halfway on the tank with 90 degrees each way. So just bear that in mind. You do have a limited turret traverse. You do have a 23-second reload, which you can get down to about 16 seconds. I think 15 odd seconds if you run vents as well. So you can get that down to a decent level. And then you've got 0.36 accuracy, which isn't the worst for a big gun like this, but again, in this era, at the distances you fight sometimes and stuff like that, it's a little bit derpy with that accuracy. You can knock it down there with other gun skills. You obviously don't get vertical stabilizers because you aren't you're a tank destroyer. Tank destroyers don't get vertical stabilizers or gun stabilizers. 2.42 accuracy during movement actually isn't that bad. It's nearly the same as the accuracy during rotation, which is a rare thing. Usually the accuracy during rotation is a lot better than the accuracy during movement. But yeah, 2.42 actually isn't that bad, and you can knock that down with run and gun, and once again, you don't run the gun, well, you can't have a gun stabilizer, so that won't get any better. The only way to get that better is with run and gun and food and stuff like that. And you've got 2.5 second aim time, which isn't very nice. Well, isn't very nice in this era. Again, for a big gun like this, 2.5 isn't too bad. And you can knock that down to about nearly 2 second aim time with a GLD, which is something that you might want to do because you really want to try and focus on this gun. Although, like I say, you can actually have the camo, which also gives you the time to use the aim time too. It's completely down to you. You do get 40 rounds, though, which means you can dish out a lot of damage. You've got like 40,000 damage worth of AP in your tank, essentially, which means you're not going to have to struggle with your ammo at all. You're not going to run out of ammo. And you do have AP, Hesh, and HE. You got 3,002 DPM to go with that reload, which is, it's a thing. But it is a big gun, so it's going to hit harder, so it's naturally not going to have the best DPM in the universe. You have 390 penetration on your AP rounds, and 300 pen on the Hesh, and 150 on the standard HE. So this is the premium Hesh, that's the standard HE. 390 on the AP is good, and you will pen a lot of things. There's actually a lot of plates you'll overmatch as well when you're shooting at people, so that's something to bear in mind with the 183mm gun in this era. But yeah, 390 is good, but you're going to struggle with some of the tanks like FV4211s, but again, that's where your overmatch and your really high caliber will come in, because if you hit them in the drive wheel, you hit them in the cupola, you hit them in that little driver's hatch on the upper plate, you can pen them with that AP round, and it will go straight in, which is nice, but you are going to, because of how derpy it is as well, 421s and stuff like that, you are really probably going to struggle with unless you are right up close to them. And the amount of times you bounce off their side with 390 AP as well is a bit of a pain too. But you can Hesh them. If you use the standard HE and fire HE at the 4211s with the standard HE, you probably do about 600-700 on a splash, which is quite nice. So if you're facing those tanks, you probably want to do that. Or you could try and get up behind them and slam them with the premium Hesh, because it does have 1,150 damage on the AP, 1450 on the premium Hesh, and 1650 on the standard HE. Now, these standard HEs, don't disregard them, because they are fantastic against Leopards, against the AMX-30s, and against light tanks. They will pen all of those for 1,650 damage, very, very easily. If you shoot a Leopard in the lower plate, or even the upper plate with 150, and the MX-30s in the the lower plate as well, you will pen them for 1,650, and you will do a lot of damage. And the amount of times you'll probably set them on fire as well is beautiful. So don't disregard these standard HE rounds, because they are very useful. And as well as that, they do splash for more than the premium Hesh too. So yeah, bear that in mind. You do have 910 velocity, 910 ammo speed, with 830 on the premium Hesh and the standard HE. So the shell velocity is not that great on these rounds, which is what adds to the feeling of the derpiness, and especially again at the distances you can play in Era 2 in Cold War, that shell velocity is not very nice, and that's something you have to bear in mind when you are shooting. You're going to have to give a lot of lead to be able to make sure that you're going to hit these shots. And if you're firing the HE, you get even more so. And at range, you're going to notice how much the shells do loop when you fire at the targets, pretty much. So yeah, that's the stats of the Rock Crawler, and I'll give you, just so you can have a quick look at the armour layout. As you can see, the armour is, well, 120 on that upper plate, 50 on the turret front. It's a bit of spaced armor. The one thing is it does have spaced armor slapped in lots of different places. So if you are in another rock crawler firing Hesh at this thing, and you think, oh, it's got no armor, I'm going to pen it, you probably would struggle, because even so, there's lots of spots where the Hesh will just explode on the spaced armor, pretty much, rather than actually pen. If you're shooting at one of these things with HE, try and shoot it on right next to the gun mantle on the left and right, and avoid the little sticky outy bits that are on the far extreme of the turret. So, in terms of equipment on this tank, this is where it can, it can vary a lot. So you can take advanced loader, and you're going to see at least one replay with the camo setup and then the rest with the gun build. You're going to run the GLD, and you're going to run the advanced loader. Or advanced reload, sorry. So you want the advanced loader, so you can have the best reload you can possibly get on this tank. The GLD to knock the aim time down to, we've not put crew in it, but nearly 2.1 second aim time when you get the crew in. And the advanced reload, because you're going to be able to use all three ammo types. And the ability to swap between all three ammo types is very important for this tank, because it gives you that flexibility for depending on what target you are facing. But naturally, you could run the camo net as well, which will make your camo really, really good. If you wanted to go faster, you could run the traction system. If you want to make everything about the tank better and have the best reload you can possibly get out of this tank, run vents. It's completely down to your playstyle. I think from the future, I'm probably going to run advanced concealment instead of the GLD, because I feel like the GLD is nice and you do get a quicker aim time out of it, but having that extra bit of camo is actually kind of very, very useful, if I'm honest. And the amount of time, because like I say, people tend to get hyper focused on things that are spotted, even in Cold War, and don't physically look for things sometimes. So even if you popped out in front of them, and didn't get spotted and they're focused on something else in the distance, if you were to actually get spotted, the likelihood is they go, oh, a tank, spotted, and look at you. But if you're not spotted, they will never notice you. So the camo is something that you could definitely take. And then, again, you could run the enhanced smoke screen to make that 20% better camo on it, which again would make your camo really, really good. But even with a camo build, I'd probably suggest, forsaking that extra 30 meters of still concealment you can gain and just run food to make everything about this tank as good as it can be, because you want to make the reload better, essentially, and the gun accuracy and the aim time. You want to try and get all of that better if you humanly can do. And then in terms of a crew, I have put it in the T100 because it's right next to it. So, in terms of the crew on the rock crawler, you can run Born Leader, Rapid Reload, Sixth Sense, Steady Aim, Snapshot, Run and Gun, Camouflage Expertise, Silent Driving, and Trap Mechanic. I run Trap Mechanic because there's a lot of situations where I am supporting the people, and because of how derpy this gun is, I do like to be a bit closer. So I will have Trap Mechanic in case someone tracks me, and then I can get out of dodge, especially if someone tracks me and I see an ATGM's flying towards me, and I don't have my repair kit anymore. The Trap Mechanic will get my tracks back on quicker, and I can try and pull back around the corner and use my quick reverse speed. These two camo perks, because like I say, you can get the camo down to very, very good if you run it with the camouflage net, and it's a TD, so you do get very good value out of that camo. And then all three gun perks, because you want to make this gun as good as it humanly can be, because it's all about the gun in this tank. Sixth Sense to know when you're spotted, because it's nice to know when you're spotted and when you're not. Rapid loading, because you're always going to want to have a 10% better reload, and Born Leader because you want to make everything about your tank better all the time, pretty much. But again, it's down to you. You could decide to drop Trap Mechanic quite easily, if I'm totally honest. You could quite easily drop that and run Deadeye instead, so that you're increasing the chance of doing, module damage and crew damage with the AP rounds, because it doesn't work for the Hesh. Or you could run Rapid Aim to make the turret traverse better. You could run Clutch Braking to make the track traverse better if you feel like it's too slow. You could run Muffled Shot to reduce, the amount of, reduce the effect of firing on your camo. Or you could run Situational Awareness just to give you that extra view range so that you can spot the targets a little bit easier. Because the one thing I've noticed when you're firing the Hesh in this thing, because of the shell velocity and stuff, sometimes it likes to loop over targets even if you're looking at them with true vision. So being able to spot them a little bit easier might be something you want to do. Or take armor angling, so you're reducing the damage that's coming into you while you're also slamming the shots into other people. Because that's something that's quite nice. Because the thing is, this tank, if we have a look at the fully pimped out stats, has that slightly better ground resistances. You've got 324 steel concealment, so you've knocked it down a little bit with the camo crew. 553 meters of view range now. 36.92 degrees a second on the turret rotation. You've knocked the accuracy during rotation down to 1.62. You've got 16.77 second reload. 0.29 accuracy during at 100 meters, which isn't too bad. 1.73 accuracy during movement. You've knocked the aim time down to 2.03, which is fantastic, from 2.5, which is why I run the GLD. But again, you could run the camo net, to be honest, and you'll knock it down even lower, and I think I probably might do, to be honest, instead of what I'm showing you here. And again, I'll show you the difference of running camo net and the GLD, and you'll see the difference in the gun. It's down to you. But I think I probably will. I'll show you the camo net, what you get camo goes down to in a minute. You got that 4.1k DPM. Now, 16.77 second reload, right? You might be thinking, oh, 183, I don't want a 183 in the Era 2 with a big alpha, because it does slap very, very hard, especially if you're in lightly armoured targets. 16.77 second reload is basically, say if I was in a Chieftain 120, let's actually go have a look at the Chieftain 120, right? As a typical gun in this era that you will see a decent amount in, say, on Conquerors and on Chieftains. So, okay, this hasn't even got a crew in it. What is the reload on the Chieftain 120? 6.7 seconds reload. So basically, for an extra 1 second, this guy, with his 530 damage, will pump 1,500, well, nearly 1,600 damage into you, for you pumping 2,200 damage to him if you both fire this first shot at the same time. So the thing is, in Era 2, there's enough hit points about that the 183 doesn't affect it too much, if I'm honest. And yeah, if you miss your shot, which happens a lot, you will get punished quite easily by how high DPM is in this era. So that's something to bear in mind, that you really want to make those shots count, because tanks will shred you very, very easily. And yeah, let's have a quick look at the camo, by the way, if I swap out that. So the camo net, look, 185 meters of steel concealment, which is pretty damn solid. And again, if I was to put the smoke screen on instead, you'd get down to 155 meters of steel concealment, which is absolutely fantastic, like I say, and makes it harder for you to get spotted. So yeah, it's down to you, but I still probably, actually, to be honest, I will probably run the camo net just to have that 185 meters, because it's nearly 120 meters of steel concealment off with the camo net and the camo crew. So I'll probably do that and then run food just to make sure everything else is still getting better anyway. But yeah, that's the Rock Crawler. That's the statistics of this tank. It's a pretty damn decent tank, if I'm honest. It does some things really nicely with the how hard it hits, the different playstyle. Just that's something unique in Era 2. And then it also does things badly with having, like, obviously a derpy gun and no armour. Down to you whether you think it's worth it. I will show you replays now. At least one of those is going to be with a camo build, and then the other three are going to be with the GLD to make sure that, to show you how that gun, much quicker that gun aims in with the GLD. Because I would say probably focusing on making this gun as good as possible is probably the best thing for most people. So as always, everybody, I'm going to see you all in the replays. So here we are in the replays with the Rock Crawler, and we are on this map, which is Grim Graveyard. Because, yep, Prokhorovka's now in Cold War for a little bit, same as Highway is, but you've got Grim Graveyard and Hell's Highway? Hell's Highway, there we go. Got there in the end. Hell's Highway, and I do love the look of the Grim Graveyard. It does look sick. But it plays better than the standard Prokhorovka would in Cold War, because just the amount of extra cover, there's extra buildings, there's extra little bits and bobs that make it so that it's a lot harder for, and as well as that, the nighttime and the haze make it a lot more difficult to use the true vision. Because the problem with Prokhorovka, if you were to have it in Cold War, is that genuinely you could see everything moving across to different areas, right? Really, really easily. You could get over and then just start slapping shots out to tanks really, really easily before they've ever had chance to move. But with, like I say, with Grim Graveyard, there is so many dead Craft Panthers knocking about, which actually fools you as well if you're looking at distances to trying to work out if that's a tank or not. That's another thing as well that helps Grim Graveyard be better than Proc. Like I said, there's lots of other extra little bits of rocks as well that's covered, just like the dead Crash Panthers. And like on my right hand side, there's actually an extra building, which again gives you extra cover to take, gives you extra ability to be covered from shots from other places too. It's been really quite nice to play in Era 2, to be fair. It's not been too bad. But yeah, I would still probably say that a good position to take on Grim Graveyard in Era 2 is still this position that I have here at F3. It's where I go in World War II, and I still do it here because I can actually still use the ridgeline to my advantage to keep popping over, popping shots into people, pulling back. And Actually, I've taken the bowl, because what I was trying to do is trying to see if I could spot the other people more, but even so, I'm actually in a more advanced position to be able to just keep popping these shots off. We're up to 3k damage so far with 1800 assistance, because we've got the tracking into the Centurion 9. And as you can see, we looked over and went, is that a tank? No, that's a dead Craft Panther. That's where it can really fool you with the haze that this nighttime is on Grim Graveyard. But we are going to have to be careful when we're poking out this bowl now, because we did get shot from the right, which is a tank that was on the hill. And we're just going to see if we can keep poking over. Oh my lord, that poor rock crawler lost his head. The AMX-30 gets spotted, or the AMX-30B. We try and pop a shot towards the 30B, but unfortunately the shell goes, well, absolutely nowhere near. And we end up missing that guy. We unfortunately missed that shot earlier on at the Brennus, is what I say missed. We hit him for 706 with the standard HE, because we can pen the standard HE in the lower plate of a 30B. We hit him in the lower plate. Oh, 1455 with the premium Hesh. Sets him on fire. If you hit those AMX-30s with the Hesh and pen it, you're going to set them on fire most of the time. It's basically been, oh, an AMX-30 loads the standard HE straight through the lower plate, sets him on fire. It's been like that consistently. It's really dirty. Dirty, dirty, dirty. But at range, I'm more likely to use the premium Hesh as opposed to the standard HE like you saw me use on that 30B, because the standard HE will probably still, it probably would still go through the upper plate, but it's less likely to, right? It's a bit more awkward in that regard. So I use the premium Hesh because the premium Hesh has 300 pen, and that's just guaranteed that if it hits anywhere on that 30B that isn't the turret, mantlet, or the gun, it's going to go through and pen them for 1450, so that's why we used it. The standard HE is better for when you know you've got that guaranteed shot into the lower plate of something like a Brennus or any of the MX-30s or the Leopards. So we get a nice shot there into the back end of the Brennus, which pens him for 700 and finishes him off. And we are now trying to close the distance to see if we can get into a better position to get some shots off. So I'm trying to see what's left. It's a Chieftain 120, and I didn't notice, well, I noticed far too slow that he actually ends up getting spotted at 87. There he is. So we load the Hesh. We've got to make sure that the shell's aimed in, and we didn't need the Hesh in the end because he ended up losing enough hit points that we slammed that shot in for 960 odd, and we finished the game with a pretty decent total. A pretty average game for the rock crawler there on Grim Graveyard. Finished with 6.5k damage, 2k assistance, 2 kills, 3rd class, and the 1223 base XP. Like I said, pretty average game for the rock crawler there, doing what the rock crawler does, which is basically use the ridge lines, poke over, hit people hard for 1,000 of damage, or use the Hesh if you can, and then pull back and get your reload in. The one thing that really does hurt this tank is YOLOing light tanks. Light tanks that YOLO in are a big pain for this tank because it can't fully traverse the turret behind, you know, it can't look behind itself, which is pain. Your track traverse isn't the best, so if you end up getting the pesky, really quick light tanks that come in behind you, it's going to hurt, and they're going to hurt you. And a lot of my experience has been those light tanks where, well, when you take a position, you end up doing like 500 damage, and a light tank goes, you know what, I'm just going to rush you and kill you, and that's it, and you die. And it's like, oh, well, cool, that's good. But when you do get the ability to, well, if you stay with your team most of the time, obviously that can't quite happen as easily, or the light tank will just lose most of its hit points to doing it. So you just got to control where you sit. So we take this position here early on Kasserine, and that's a nice shot straight through that rock crawler to start with. I always like coming to this position here on this ridge, because not all, where that rock crawler was and then where that M103 is, it tends to be a dead area for the enemy team, because they, by this point in Era 2, Era 3, most people know not to go that way, because you're going to get spotted quite easily and you're going to die. But it's always good to come to this position first to start off with, because you can get here, try and spot it out. If anyone does go that way, you can make them pay, and that's what we've done to that poor rock crawler. We put one through his side, and then we put an extra shot through his turret front. Now, you did see me bounce a shot off my turret in the last game, and that's because obviously angles, and this tank with its turret doesn't really have much armour at all, but it does have angles. So if you're on a ridgeline and you're accentuating those angles, that's why you can bounce things. You're not a guaranteed automatic pen for every tank, you know, because of the angles on the shots, but your armour basically doesn't mean much. It's the best way of putting it. So we're going for a shot on this rock crawler, you know, slim to nothing. We aim a little bit too low and we hit the rock. We are detected though, so I was like, I don't like being detected as I'm poking over on this ridgeline. I'm not a fan of that. What is looking at me? So we get spotted instantly and detected again. It's like, okay. This is where having that camo build would be far, far nicer. That rock crawler tries to come over to get a shot at us, and we shut him down. This is where the camo build would be a lot nicer, because they wouldn't have been instantly spotting me here and I would have been able to safely poke up and aim my shots without knowing that, knowing that they aren't looking at me. So we load the standard HE here to go through the BMP1 because we could hit him for 1650. And of course the shot, instead of hitting the upper plate, which is what we were aiming for, went wide and hit only the tracks. So we did 760 odd damage to that BMP. Sad times, that's not what I wanted to do, but hey ho. We now got the AP loaded for this M103A2, but he's not playing ball, so we aim for the shot into the side of that BMP1 and slap it in for 1,000 odd because we fired the AP. There was no point firing the Hesh there at that BMP because we would have not penned, because we would have hit his space, his tracks again, which are spaced armor, and it would have just not penned, which would have been awkward. Now we've got the shot into this M103. We load the Hesh because we're aiming for the back of the turret, but unfortunately we just did not lead it anywhere near enough, and the shell flew wide. Again, that's where the shell velocity firing at that sort of distance can throw you off, and it's something to bear in mind that, yeah, when you are firing at that sort of distance, you really have to make sure that you are leading those shots correctly, otherwise you will miss, because this gun is derpy, like I say. It will miss shots quite regularly. It doesn't like hitting the most regular of shots. So, we're going in now to help this medium tank that is spotted at this medium tank that's C5 that is our tank. Our team, I should say. And the medium tank that we spotted, the Brennis, is charging after him. And he is a tank that I want to slam my standard HE straight through. That Brennis is chasing after this 60A2. So we're hoping to get there to just basically, because we can't one-shot him with our standard HE if we hit him in the right spot. But he doesn't quite give us the shot. I could snap the shot there, but I'd probably end up missing. The M60A2 is trying his best to get away from this Brennis. We're waiting for it. Hello, Mr. Brennis. 1,500, well, 1,499, whatever it was, straight through the lower plate of that Brennis. Whew! When those Hesh shells hit, man. When those Hesh shells hit, it's always a glorious time. Now we're going after this M103A2. We switched to AP because that's what we'll need to pen it. And the M60A2 just detonates his ammo rack very casually, meaning there's no more damage there for us. We're up to 5.3k damage. We want at least one more shell. We slap it straight through the Pharaoh's Fury. I'm sad that that didn't detonate its ammo rack if we only damaged it, but hey ho. We finished the game with 6.5k damage. Again, another pretty average game for the Rock Crawler there. With the 3 kills, 6.5k damage, the third class, and the 1,232 base XP for the Rock Crawler. So another pretty average game for it, where, you know, you miss quite a few shells, but you also pen quite a few, and when you do get to pen those shots, it starts racking up quite quickly. Because that's the thing with, obviously, these big alpha guns, is you don't need to hit many shots to start hitting that higher echelon of damage. You hit, what, 9 shots? You've probably done about 10k on average, with, you know, the amount of, with 1,150, and then even so, if you start to pen the Hesh rounds as well, oh good gravy, you're pushing that damage up. So this is with the camo build. So this is the camo build I suggested. So you've got the camo net, you've got the smoke, you've got the same crew with the camouflage and muffled, the camouflage expertise and the silent driving. This is the full camo experience, okay? And this is what we're going for. Do we use the camo all too much in this game? We do a little bit at the start, but for the most part we're quite close in because the gun kind of wants to be closer in and supporting. But it's pretty helpful for when you are, let's say, trying to fire the shots. So this first bit here, if I had the normal build, I'd probably be getting spotted when I poke around this corner, because you'll see where one of the tanks is. It's an M60A2 at the back. We see him fire. It's like, nope, absolutely not. He misses us with that ATGM, and we slap the shot in for 1,082. Yeah, so we probably would have got spotted when we fired there, but because we had the really good camo, it means that we didn't really, which is why the camo is very, very nice to have. Like I said, would I suggest running smoke, even with this camo build? No, not really. I don't think I would. I think I would stick with food, if I'm totally honest, because the food is massively, massively effective. You get so much out of running food, because you get a passive, very good passive boost, which makes everything about your tank really, really good, and then you also get a really, really good active boost as well. Now there, by the way, that was me reflexing food, and I had smoke. So I was that annoying smoke teammate that just pops smoke and blocks everyone's shot. I'm so sorry. As you can see, my annoyance wiggle right there. That's when I'm so used to having food that I reflex it. That it's like, oh, I've not got food, have I got smoke? So you saw us there with the shot, by the way, go for that T72, and it basically derped and went low and went underneath him and tracked him only. We go for the shot into that T72 again, and at distance, it just ends up going high and hitting the turret and not penning. Again, this is where this gun falls down, shooting at range. You do want to be that second line support. You want to be, you know, you want to be up close and personal with the enemy if you can. So this is where we want to be. 1,222 into the lower plate of that man. Oh, that's a roll. The enemy team is starting to charge up in from our base, because this is Duckler Pass. This is what happens generally. And now we've got to make sure our alpha counts, because they're pushing very aggressively into our 4-2 FV412. FV4211. We got there in the end. English is hard. Tank designation is hard. Ugh, whatever. We got there in the end. This guy is going to be able to hold the line, and we need to support this man if we can. This is what I'm talking about, being that support tank. So we're waiting for the reload. We're trying to see if we can get a shot into these guys. We aim for the side of the 272 M1, and of course we don't pen it. The shot went low and tracked it only, because why not? This gun, it loves to do that. It really, really does. The Magak 5 is coming. He gets a shot into the 30B. I really want to conserve my hit points, because my gun is so important in this at the minute. The Magak pops a shot in, kills our gunner, because he went straight to the turret. If you do get shot through the turret, your gunner will die. And we pop the shot into him for 1,000 and finish him off. The Leopard 2AV, I'm just being careful of, because he is running away, or running round the Triumph flankers. The M113, we load the standard Hesh, because, well, we can pen that guy with standard HE, and we shut him down for 1,100. We didn't need it in the end, but we still popped a big shot into him. We popped the smoke there, because that 2AV might turn around and start shooting us in the side, which I didn't want, but it was probably a waste of smoke, to be honest, because he really wasn't focused on me whatsoever. The medium tank's gone to attack the other medium tank that was behind us, so in fact, we're just going to try and get rid of the heavy tank that was in front, but he ends up getting shut down anyway. There's a MX-32B2 Brennus that's capping. We actually have the shot at this guy's lower plate. Clean shot. It goes left and hits the building. Because of course it does. Thank you, Rockcrawler. I love you, gun. I love you so much. That's what this gun does. We had like I say, we had a very clean shot of that guy there, and it was just like, nah, you know what? No. Nah, I ain't hitting that. No. So it ended up missing. Now we've got the Magak. He is a one-shot for our AP. He pops out. And we aimed at the lower plate, and it went to the far side and actually penned it straight through the side. So I'll take that RNG. We shut down the Magak 5 for 5.1k damage, 796 assistance. We know where the last 4 tanks are. There's this guy in front of us here at this bandit, sorry, at E3. We load the Hesh because we know we can Hesh this guy in the ass and do a lot of damage. But he ends up being sideways on. He does have spaced armor all over that thing, so I didn't want to risk the Hesh just not penning, so we load back the AP, and in the end he ended up taking a hit so that he was still a one-shot for the AP, and we shut down the bandit. We're up to 4 kills, 6k damage, bit of tracking, and now we're going to push into this Enigma. I felt I had my medium tank with me and my heavy tank was coming, so I was like, okay, you know what, let's slap a 300 pen Hesh round into the lower plate of this T-55 Enigma, and let's go push this guy. Unfortunately, the Hesh round did not pen the Enigma's lower plate, which I was quite surprised about, but it's like, okay, you know what, if the Hesh round didn't want to pen that guy's low plate, let's put the AP round into it. So we slapped the AP round in 12.37, and I start getting shot in the side and the rear, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is probably a little bit too aggressive. I might die here. This is not good. The Enigma comes over and shuts down the Chieftain Mark 5. We switch to standard HE because we only need to splash him, which means we can actually just hit anywhere near him. He starts charging around to come after us, but he ends up getting shut down by the FV4211. So that guy's gone. There's only 1 tank left on the enemy team. It is a Magak 3. And again, with these standard HE, I know I can splash for like up to 700 odd, so we're going to chance it. And I didn't really expect him to be that far out. I didn't expect him to be that far out around the side of the rock, so I could have just loaded AP and finished that guy off. But hey-ho, 600 odd damage, and I'm expecting him to die any time now, but he's not dying. It's like, okay, well, I only need to splash you now. I've got all the hit points. I don't care. I can take a hit. Drive round and slam the shot into the Magak 3 and finish the game with a really nice total for the Rock Crawler there with the camo build. 8.5k damage, 1,000 assistance. We finished with the victory, 5 kills, good amount of credits, 263,000, the first class, and 1,712 base XP. That's the thing, this tank does actually make pretty damn nice credits as well. You tend to make that 250, 300k pretty easily, which is always another thing for the Era 2 premiums. They do make a hell of a lot of money, and it's very, very nice in that regard. And the Rock Crawler is no different. So we're on to the 4th and final replay of this video, and this is the best damage game I've had in the tank. And we're on Siegfried Line. Shout out to it's Robbie Rhino, by the way. He's on the opposite team. He also makes the videos, CA, and is a pleb, which is always a good thing. And we'll probably be doing an in-depth review of this tank and compare it to loads of other stuff as well, because he does do the very, very thorough in-depth reviews as well. So go check out Robbie's videos, go check out his channel, go subscribe to him, and just say hi, you know? So, Siegfried line, I'm going to push very aggressively here because a lot of my team is behind me. So it's like, okay, you know, I'm going to push aggressively, see if I can spot anything that crosses along the JK line and get the shots into them. The M60A1 ends up pushing over, we can't quite get the shot into him. We load the standard HE, we see the 4AD. Oh, 1764 and we set him on fire. Oh, Lord above. Oh, no, that poor guy. 2,260 damage in one shot. Oh, that's not going to buff out. Oh, that looked painful. That's a beautiful shot. We take those. So the M60 fires. We looked for the shot into. We couldn't quite find it. We looked for the shot into that driver's hatch of the FV4211, but unfortunately it doesn't go anywhere near it. It just hits the upper plate and bounces. We're now waiting for the reload because we know there's a rock crawler gets spotted back there now. And I'm pretty sure I can see his turret poking out. Then there's something else is spotted crossing over, and there it is, there's a rock crawler. So we slap the shot into that rock crawler for 1,000. Now we know there's a rock crawler behind that bunker. We have to be very, very careful now when we poke out, because that rock crawler can hurt us. Then we spot the MX-13 SS11 with our true vision. There he is. So we're going to switch to the standard HE. Oh, we're not even going to switch to the standard HE. We didn't even go for him. We went for the bigger target, which is the rock crawler, the other rock crawler at the back. We put 1,200 damage into that man. I thought we were going for the SS11 there. Nope, we went for the rock crawler because he is an important target to get rid of. Now we're going for the 13 SS11. We make sure the shot is aimed into his turret. 1,549 with the standard HE into that man as well. We're up to 6,085 damage, and we're just keeping our eye out for that rock crawler because he could poke out from behind that bunker at any point, and that will not be a good time for us because that will hurt. So we're still looking for the shots into these guys along the back line. We see where that M60A1 was. We popped the shot at his turret, and unfortunately we end up ricocheting off that guy's turret. We should have just loaded HE. We knew where he was. We could have just whittled him down a little bit by bit with the HE. Probably a misplay, really. So we're still looking for the shots into that bloke. We can't quite see it. We end up seeing... We do spot him, though, and then the medium tank as well. We're overexposed a little bit, and thankfully the... I think that's the 13SS11 ends up missing... Well, doesn't pen us with the ATGM, and he gets shut down from above us as well. I'm noticing, though, that my team behind me is starting to die, and they're getting pushed quite aggressively by the enemy team, and it's not a good thing. I can't really do too much, because I'm kind of locked into the position by the rock crawler that's over here, so I've got to be a little bit more patient with my gameplay, because I'm a tank destroyer, that's the way it has to be. We're just got to keep our eye out for this rock crawler. If this rock crawler pokes out, we're going to dish out some big damage into this man if we can. So you can see, he's starting to poke out a little bit. He's seeing if we can see anybody to get shots into them. I'm just keeping my eye out with true vision to see if I can see anyone, and you can see the smoke that keeps popping out from his tank as he's moving. There we go. He gets itchy, moves out. We pop it for 1125. Unfortunately, it's still got one shot of HP. I was kind of hoping someone might finish it off, but nothing happens, and we're just waiting for the reload once again. Unfortunately, he is going to get back behind that ridge line. Now the MX-30B2 4AD is poking out. That would have been a good shot to have. The M60A1 was giving us a glorious shot into the side of his tank there, so we popped the AP straight through the side of his tank for 800, for like 1,000 damage. We're on 8,300 damage. The rock crawler is still over there. We're just seeing if he's going to pop out with so we can finish it off, but he doesn't. We're looking for the M60A1, and at this point I'm going, oh boy, this game is not looking good. It's not looking good. So I decide, okay, you know what? I'm going to turn around and try and get safe behind me around this corner and start putting shots into these guys if I can. So we drive around the corner, going for the shots into this Enigma, and it's like, oh, goodness gracious me, that's a heavy tank. What is it? It's a 4211. We put the shot straight through the back end of his tank for 1,003, and at this point I'm like, oh, I'm dead. I can't back up anymore because the rock crawler will end up shutting me down, and we're just at the whim of this Enigma. I'm just hoping I can possibly reload in time to get a shot into him, and unfortunately we end up getting shut down by the Enigma. So sadly that was a defeat for our team. We finished the game with 9,300 damage, a really nice damage total for the tank, nearly 300k on a loss, high caliber, 603 base XP for the loss there on the tank, and that was the best damage game I've had so far in the rock crawler. It's a pretty decent tank destroyer. It's nice to have that different gameplay in Era 2. It hits hard, but the gun is very, very derpy and you've got no armor, but your mobility is pretty good. On the whole, it's a pretty decent tank. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.
great success.